Good afternoon, class. My name is Andrew Vasquez, and I'm presenting the argument that the U.S. should not support Ukraine with weapons for the following reasons. So U.S. aid is becoming a hindrance to our own national security. And by this, I mean that the U.S. involvement in Ukraine is becoming a hindrance on our own military, specifically the fact that we are providing billions of dollars in aid. It's hindering our military capability and also hindering taxpayers. The amount of weapons, vehicles, munitions that are being provided to Ukraine has slowly began to hinder our own capabilities and limit our possible capabilities in a war game situation. So the U.S. military has things known as O plans, which is a scenario that is drawn out very vaguely with generalized way to counter specific issues at hand. So for example, if the United States was invaded by Canada, for example, there's an O plan out there that exists that would show how the United States would react in those specific circumstances. And they're provided for general guidance for the force and how to react to this specific scenario. So in some of the war game situations, if the U.S. was to face a near-peer threat in large-scale ground combat operations known as LSCO, we may be in trouble providing resources to our own troops. So things such as weapons, munitions, vehicles, things of that nature. So additionally, since February of 2023, and this was like one of the last, just quick articles I pulled up really quick, we provided Ukraine with about $115 billion in aid. And our own U.S. military every year. So for FY23, fiscal year 23, it was $877 billion that were spent on the military budget, which is essentially the same amount as like the next 10 countries combined. So we spent obviously vast majority of our budget on the military in comparison to other countries. But the aid that is provided to Ukraine is about 1/8 of our military budget, and that's just like in 1 year. So my personal opinion, the United States has already done way too much, and I feel that we kind of serve as like the world police, and we get involved in all over the country. I'm sorry, all over the international community, all over the world, way too much. And I believe that we should reel some of that back and focus on home. And I always hear like the argument that the U.S. is imperialist and warmongers, and we're always at war and stuff like that. But yet at the same time, we're over there backing a proxy war, taken out in Ukraine against Russia. Um, so it's pretty interesting that people are kind of like backing that. Yet, when there's other conflicts arising and stuff like that, people are not, as supportive. In personal opinion, I believe that Russia already showed their cards and demonstrated that they logistically cannot support a war of this magnitude. So, like logistically, they are unable to support the FLOT, so the forward line of troops, with convoys, resupply of weapons, munitions. Vehicles are just in like disarray. The training of their troops is poor. The maintenance of their vehicles is very, very poor. So I don't think that they are the near peer threat that the United States and the rest of the international community has thought they were. But because of the fact that they have, nuclear capabilities and stuff like that, it's kind of like deterred, uh, you know, the international community from invading and getting involved in the situation that's unfolding currently in Ukraine. The second point that I want to bring up is that we are providing weapons, munitions, and training to a state actor that is not really involved in any kind of uh, alliance or like agreement really. It's all kind of just floating in the air, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll get to it when we can. So specifically like NATO and the EU, like Ukraine is not in either of these alliances and or any of these pacts, and they're not, they're kind of just like a pseudo member of like, oh yeah, we got your back, and once all these aggressions are completed, we'll look at your joining into these alliances and stuff like that. So I do believe that it's pretty threatening to the world that we're arming Ukraine with all these crazy weapons and stuff like that, things that we're using currently. It's probably not the latest and greatest, but it is very, very elite or technologically advanced in comparison to some of the other countries that exist around the world. Like, so for example, like the battle tanks that are being provided, or the aircraft platforms, the airframes that are being flown over there. It's very, very advanced in comparison to some of the international partners and stuff like that. So just nilly-willy, just giving them all this stuff to me is it's pretty serious. Like I personally wouldn't do it, but that's just me. So nothing's really stopping Ukraine from turning around and using those things against us. So I think that from a national security perspective is pretty serious. They're not a trusted ally yet. So why are we just, getting up and giving everything to them? The last point that I wanted to make was the budget that we are giving to Ukraine. I probably should have talked about this in the first bullet. It's pretty sizable. So because of that, why aren't we using that money other places? So for example, the impending government shutdown that's like looming over here in the next, 24 hours. That budget could definitely offset some of the programs that are going to be shut off because of that. So yeah, so that's my argument. Take it for what it's worth. Thank you for listening.